My parents were basically freedom fighters, and they gave up everything. There was never much money in the family, which is why I had to work my way through college by working for All India Radio while I graduated from St. Stephen's College, Delhi. But I came to Bombay, and I started working in advertising. For 5 years, I worked in advertising. First as the film chief of Lintas, then as the film and radio chief of Ogilvy and Mather. And those 5 years were my grounding in the corporate world, which was completely different to the offices of All India Radio. I had to relearn everything. I had to rework all my equations. The who's who, the etiquette, the way work is done, the way things are processed, accountability. I had to reinvent myself. And then I moved to film, which is a totally different environment. Again, and even more unfamiliar, because I came to it through the English theatre, and this was Hindi cinema. So I had to adjust from theatre to cinema, and then from English to Hindi. And these weren't easy transitions. And in each sphere that you enter, when you get, say, you change job and you go to another organization, you have to get to know the who's who of the organization. And you have to first start with who you are, what your assets are, what your background is, what your grounding is, what your skills are, and how to apply this in a new environment. Because in each environment, you are, in a sense, rebranding yourself. And you have to rebrand yourself. And reinventing yourself. And that's what I had to do over and over and over. Because from here, my next step, how all this happens, is in my book. It's a very interesting story. But to tell it to you in brief, minus all the great emotional dramas of my life, how this transition takes me to Italy, where again, I'm in a completely new environment, where I'm catapulted to the top as a star, not just Italian, European star. It was as big a success in Spain and France and Germany and the East European countries and Holland.
There were times when buildings had to be closed down because you were being mobbed and they were frightened that the ceiling would, or the floor would give way.
That's all in my book. I won't dwell on the details of these wonderful stories, but you must read them. But in each of these situations, you have to find ways of dealing with this whole new situation. You know, success, everyone thinks success is very easy to deal with. It's not. It's like a 9/11. It's like some cataclysmic event that happens that changes your life forever. And the rules that applied to your life before no longer apply. And so whether you do this by changing companies or changing countries, there is a process of adjusting to that success, because you're promoted somewhere, it's a success. But now you're in a totally new environment, out of familiar friends and circles, and it's not easy to do this. So success has as many challenges as failures. Now, in the wake of all this extraordinary success and going on to do the Bond film and Bold and Beautiful and other things in America and other series, there came a time in America where I hit my absolute rock bottom. It was the greatest personal tragedy of my life, when my son, a techie, graduate of Carnegie Mellon, with the world before him, got schizophrenia and ended up committing suicide. It's another chapter of my book, a very tragic, moving chapter, and how I dealt with it and tried to prevent that from happening. But at the same time, I'd made various financial investments that all of them crashed at the same time. I invested in a company called Netscape, thinking it was going to be the next Google. Everyone thought it was going to be the next great thing. Crashed. Gold had been driven down to a value almost less than its intrinsic worth. I thought gold has to go up. It crashed further. Apple, I bought it at $2 thinking there's no way this company can go below $2. It went to $1. And I was so convinced of these investments, I'd leveraged those investments. So when they went down, I was wiped out. So I was wiped out financially, wiped out emotionally. How do you deal with tragedy, setbacks, that again is as cataclysmic an event which calls for a re-understanding of what's happened.